Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran and Blizzard is taking more abilities off of the GCD with patch 8.1 because the patch is coming out in about a week depending on if you're US or EU. We are going to be taking a look at some of the abilities that are coming off of GCD and what are some of the other suggestions the community have. The question is, what else can we take off GCD in order to make the gameplay feel smooth? Are there certain abilities that feel bogged down by the GCD altogether and just don't feel all that fun or great to press? Are those abilities important to what the class needs to do and what it offers to maybe their team or personal gameplay? So let's take a look at what Blizzard is giving back for GCD and what else could be added by what the community have said. First of all, I'll say this, most of the abilities in this tier are going to be mobility based, but how those abilities affect the classes that they affect does make an impact. I would say that everyone can agree that Demon Hunters is one of the most mobile classes in the game. So when learning that the ability of Vengeful Retreat is going to be off of GCD, as in you can use offensive abilities and retreat almost in the same go, offers some gameplay changes like offensive power with talent of Momentum, which on your Vengeful Retreat offers you a lot of fury regeneration over time, but also when it comes to clutch situations in defensive situations. Demon Hunters have always been able to use their mobility as a way to play defensively, so being able to get yourself out of a bad situation or even utilize that mobility as a way to close the gap with an enemy, I feel like offers a lot of gameplay to the class. So it's one of those things where it actually bogs down the gameplay if it's on GCD. To have insane amounts of reaction time and utilize it as a Demon Hunter can definitely turn the tide of a situation. So this is one of those abilities that I felt like was definitely kind of weird that it was on GCD for every Demon Hunter out there, and I feel like this might offer a few opportunities for different playstyles. Then we have Feral Druids with Wild Charge being taken off of GCD as well. This offers a lot of mobility options whether you're Feral, Resto, Boomkin, or Guardian, and having this off of GCD offers very interesting type of gameplay. For example, for Feral Druids in PvP, I think, to be able to open up with Rake on one target while leaping at the second target to bash them off the opener, I feel like can offer a little bit more fun to the gameplay, and it's always felt just overall clunky, so this change was necessary. Then we have Arms Warrior, which is a class that uses charge as a way to not only close the gap with the enemy, but also to generate resources. Having charge on a GCD always felt weird, even though the GCD wasn't all that high, but having it off GCD allows you to kind of combine multiple abilities at the same time. Imagine, since you are an Arms Warrior and charge generates you some rage, being able to charge the enemy and press sweeping strikes at the same time, giving you as much uptime on your AoE. I feel like it offers some fun gameplay to it. In the same breath, Protection Warriors even got some changes where their intercept as well as the PvP talent, where they basically just rush the enemy, knocking back everybody in front of them, all of those are of the GCD as well. So is Pain Suppression, even though Protection Warriors haven't been the strongest tank in the game, not the most picked for Mythic Pluses by any measure or even raid situations, but still a decent tank. Don't know if it's exactly going to be enough to fix the spec and make him strong, but it does seem like Blizzard is taking off abilities, even those for honor talents that are overall fun. Like they actually find out themselves, yes, some of these GCD are just bogged down and they're just not enjoyable to press, so they're starting to free up those slots. I feel like the Blizzard is basically starting to revert everything slowly but surely towards back how it was in Legion. All that smooth gameplay in a nutshell. And then Survival Hunter Harpoon is actually off GCD as well. Now, when they had Disengage on GCD, that was weird, but having Harpoon off GCD is actually very nice. It allows Survival Hunters to harpoon at the enemy while also being able to apply their dots, so your openers are going to be a lot more smooth. Imagine finding an enemy, harpooning at them while simultaneously activating your burst cooldowns. I feel like it honestly just saves a GCD because it gives you more smooth opener, but also I think it allows Survival Hunters a little bit more in terms of overall mobility and getting around places. It's just kind of fun overall to be able to disengage and harpoon right in right afterwards and being able to time it a lot better. Overall, we have mostly mobility changes for GCD, but how do they affect each and every one of these classes? I feel like the changes they're coming up with for 8.1 are significant. Most of these are just mobility abilities, and one of the things that Blizzard is looking for is making them feel great to press, not feel like, oh, kind of bogged down, or feel like you're limited or constricted. It's all about moving around and getting from A to B, maybe in some ways a fun way of doing it, like we've seen with Protection Warriors and how they are making an honor talent that's not really taken in competitive arenas, something that's actually usable. But a lot of these abilities, regardless, still offer changes to gameplay, whether it's Arms Warriors and Fear Warriors being able to apply abilities while charges off the GCD, like be able to pop cooldowns while charging at the same time, shortening definitely the time that would take for you to, I guess, get your setup going. Or when you have Survival Hunters being able to do the same thing with Harpoon. But also you have Demon Hunters and Pharaohs who can utilize the mobility in other ways rather than just like be able to leap while popping cooldowns at the same time. Like the interesting ways and intricacies. Being able to utilize these mobility abilities to get out of a bad situation with the right timing. So we're looking at abilities that are simply fun and feel great to press, but also those where you could have a little bit extra skill to it. So those two criterias, it feels like Blizzard is fine taking those particular abilities of the GCD. What else could we take off the GCD while we're at it? It does seem to me, honestly, that if they're going to be going after fun abilities or generally abilities that overall feel good to press, that they might transition and take off even more as the time goes on. When you take a look at some of the communities that have been asking for GCD changes, I'm wondering if we can make an argument for any of these and try to be reasonable. Is it possible to give Shadow Priest capability on Dispersion or Vampiric Embrace as to be off GCD? Now, Dispersion is one of those abilities where in PvP to be off GCD would feel absolutely insane, and while it's an ability that also allows you to play around with your insanity, where you can use a defensive ability offensively, having it off the GCD could actually give you a little bit of an edge if you're able to use this ability properly. The same thing goes for Vampiric Embrace, although I understand kind of why Blizzard says that that one should be on GCD, is because it's a raid-wide utility to be able to provide a bunch of healing to a lot of your allies. I'll be honest though, because we don't see a lot of Shadow Priests, I don't see how strong this healing is on the regular. But I know that it's a cooldown and it's considered a raid cooldown, similar to what Arms Warriors have with Commanding Shout or Demon Hunters have with Darkness. I guess Shadow Priests are in a similar boat. But honestly, when it comes to PvP, for example, having Vampiric Embrace off of GCD would be so nice. Shadow Priests are not doing all that well, but it's really more of a balancing issue. Maybe this will be kind of sort of alleviated once patch 8.1 arrives with the Shadow Priest buffs. But what do you guys think? Then we got classes like Frost Death Knight, where they technically don't have a proper gap closer like other classes, you know, like a charge or a harpoon or anything like that, but they have a Death Grip. Death Grip is a little bit different than others because it moves the enemy to you rather than you to the enemy, kind of giving the Death Knight the whole idea that they are a walking monstrosity that's a lot like a zombie. Slow, but once it gets to you, it's gonna hit hard. Death Grip just doesn't feel quite as great to press and play with, and I played with it before. It does feel a little bit weird to have to save a GCD just to get the grip in there. In some cases it can save my team in certain situations, but I would agree it still doesn't feel that great to play. Also Wraithwalk, like Death Knights are already pretty immobile as is. If they took off Wraithwalk off the GCD so you could use an ability and move at the same time, I think it would allow more skillful gameplay for Death Knights to be able to get out of bad situations, and it would be worth the talent. And while we're at it, what about Red Pallies? Is Divine Steed an ability that allows Retribution Paladins to actually move at a fairly high speed? Should that also be off the GCD? Could it be because it would have some functional uses? I mean, maybe Blizzard does want Paladins to feel not really as mobile as others, but would it also feel good to have it off GCD? I feel like Blizzard is kind of showing that with not all abilities that are going to be used for PvE specific purposes, there are some that definitely don't feel quite as great to press, and they just don't feel quite as great for the feel. And since they are focusing mostly on mobility based abilities, why couldn't the Paladin one also be changed to off GCD? No matter what expansion it is, whether paladins are super strong or whether they're kind of moderately weak-ish compared to some of the other classes, a lot of them have been asking for great mobility, and they never really had any amazing mobility, except the one expansion, I think Mob, where Judgment increasing movement speed. That was kind of nice, but outside of that, they do feel kind of slow. I guess my question is there an argument to be made for any of those other classes? Could they somehow be improved upon by taking more abilities of the GCD? And why would Blizzard not hit on all mobility-based abilities, but rather on those few? Don't get me wrong, this ability change is very minor, but I feel like it has major implementations regardless, especially the one for Warrior and Demon Hunter. I'm actually very excited in terms of what it can offer to the class. But classes like Death Knight, classes like Shadow Priest, I mean, I feel like a few of those could maybe be taken off of GCD for gameplay purposes, and you could make an argument for those. But honestly, if those arguments could be strong enough and agreed enough by the community, couldn't the rest of the abilities be taken off GCD? Maybe even certain cooldowns that don't feel quite as good taken off GCD? I guess the possibilities are limitless. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video where we're showing you exactly all the abilities taken off GCD for patch 8.1 and trying to make an argument for some of the other abilities that could potentially be taken off for some of the other classes. In your thoughts, what abilities would you like to see taken off the GCD? Is it major cooldowns? Is it utilities, mobility, anything for particular classes? Let me know all that in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in the next video.